How you doing, Willie?
I'm all right, thank you very much. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, and welcome all to a game of my life where I talk to a former player about a special game in his career. Join me today is William McInerney.
McInerney.
That's one hell of a mouthful. I tried it. I didn't think I'd get it quite correct, but you did perfect a wonderful kick on the 3rd of October in 1970 with you and Ernie Hunt. We're going to talk about that donkey kick. We're going to go back. We're going to take a trip down memory lane and revisit that game. Coventry City 3, Everton 1. Noel Campbell was the manager of your boys, Coventry City, and Harry Catterick's team were champions of England that visited Highfield Road on that day in front of 29,212 fans. Firstly, what was your memories about that game and playing against the champions of England?
Well, obviously the free kick, but also like because Everton were sort of like champions. If they're champions, you play against you want to try and beat them, because they're champions, But obviously the free kick was the biggest thing about it, and it actually coming off as well. So and everything just seemed to sort of fit into place when we took the free kick.
Let's start with that free kick then. Where did it come from, Willie?
Well, from what I remember, there was with a coach at Coventry called Bill Asprey.
Yep.
And he'd been to Lilleshall during the closed season on a coaching course, and he'd come back and he asked us to try this free kick out, and we were saying he'd after what, and but anyway we tried, and Ernie was a great volleyer of the ball, great striker of the ball, and. We tried it in training and stuff like that, and a couple of times it'd come off, and then most times than not it didn't, So, but just on that day, we'd made up our minds we were going to try it, and there's myself standing over the ball, and there's Ernie waiting for me to flick it up, and beside Ernie was Dave Clements, and if you see the match back again, as I flick it up, Dave goes to try and get involved, and Ernie's going to sort of like try and push him out of the way a little bit, But the thing is, they didn't move because they hadn't a clue what was happening.
Yeah.
And obviously, I flicked it up just at the right size, at the right level. And Ernie was one of the best volleyers I've ever seen in the ball. And as soon as he left his boot, it was in the net. You knew it was going to be a goal.
Now, you flicked it up a hell of a distance, didn't you? You must have flicked it up 6 or even 7 foot in the air.
Yeah, in fact, to be honest, mate, I probably flicked it up too high.
Yeah.
But because Everton didn't do anything, because they didn't know what was happening, you see.
Yeah.
So they never even sort of tried to close it down because they just didn't have a clue. And plus the fact that I'd got it in between my legs. I'm sure they'd be wondering, well, what's he going to do now? Mm-hmm. So, and then I'd say I flicked it up, and to be honest, I probably flicked it too high. But as soon as it left Ernie's boot, that was a goal.
Were you always on free kicks, Willie? And how come it was down to you and Ernie to do the free kicks? Was it something that you two had already practiced before the coach?
Yeah. Well, usually in teams you get people who get involved in free kicks. It was like when I come to the Wolves, we have it's usually a couple of sort of like ball players, I suppose, that do it, So it's just, and I think you get that at most clubs. There's always sort of 2 or 3 players that take free kicks and stuff like that.
And in training, what was your success rate on that donkey kick?
Not very good, mate, to be honest.
Was you surprised when you scored against Everton? Was it a bit?
I wasn't surprised. It was just great that it come off.
Yes.
If you would have spoke to Ernie, bless his heart and bless his soul, he was saying that we tried it probably a week before or a fortnight before, and he said there was a big clock behind behind the goal at Tottenham, and he says, I nearly smashed the clock. He said, you know. So we tried it a couple of times, and it hadn't really come off, you know. But at that day, and the other thing about that day was, I think it was the first time that Match of the Day was in colour, as well, you know. So everything just fell into place basically.
And they had a couple of camera angles, and on the one camera angle, it pretty much missed it, didn't it? You were almost disguised, as you say. The ball was in between your legs, and you flicked it up, and everybody was watching with bated breath. What was Willie Carr going to do?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, it got voted goal of the season, didn't it? And you also tried it again at Stoke City that season, and then FIFA banned it, didn't they, at the end of the season?
Well, I thought it was the FA that got it banned, to be honest.
Really? Okay.
Because they said that I was touching the ball twice, which I suppose I was. But for me, it was like, you're always looking out for something new, so I thought it was just a bit petty to ban it, sort of thing, you know. But what it did do, it started a few more free kicks, because I know that Asa Hartford and Dennis Stewart at Man City, I think Asa just used to put his foot under the ball and flick it up for Dennis Stewart the goal at that as well. And then I think there was at Southampton, there was Matt Letizia and somebody else.
Jimmy Jones.
And the man at Southampton, the lad that took the free kick just rolled it towards Matt, and he flicked himself and then volleyed it in.
Yeah.
You know, but the difference between ours was that I'd got it between my legs, so by law I was touching it twice. And the other thing was that because I flicked it up, the ball was apparently supposed to carry its own circumference, which it didn't do when I flicked it up.
Yeah.
You know? So, but it brought another sort of like 2-3 kicks into life as well.
It certainly did. Can you remember your teammates, the Coventry lineup on that day?
God. I know Glaze had been in goal.
Yep.
Mickey Coote and Chris Clink, probably the fullbacks.
Yep.
And centre half, Jeff Blockley.
Correct.
And the lad that was at Liverpool, Jeff Strong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was in.
And then there was myself.
Yep.
Dave Clements.
Yep.
Was Chris Catlin playing?
No.
Clem was probably fullback then, and it'd be me, and it'd be Hutchie, Ernie. I'm just trying to think now.
When you say Hutchie,
Tommy Hutchins.
No,
he didn't play.
No, Tommy didn't play that game.
They come then, maybe.
Neil Martin played.
Oh, Neil Martin. Yeah.
John O'Rourke.
Oh, yeah.
And Brian Alderson.
Brian Alderson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the Coventry City lineup.
Right.
Can you remember the Everton lineup?
Well, I know it was like in goal was what do you call him? Was it Harvey?
Andy Rankin.
Right back would
Keith Newton.
Who?
Keith Newton.
Right. Brian LeBone.
Brian LeBone didn't play that day.
No. I think who else then?
Tommy Wright.
Tommy Wright.
John Hurst.
Yeah. Ray Wilson.
No. Roger Kenyon played.
Roger Kenyon, yes.
The midfield trio of Kendall, Harvey, and Ball.
Yeah, Harvey, and they were called what were they called?
The Trinity, the Holy Trinity.
Yeah. They were all magic players. They were.
Joe Royal, Alan Whittle, and Johnny Morrissey made up Everton's 11.
What was the little blonde-haired lad?
He was. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
What did Everton's response to the goal be?
Well, I don't. Well, we weren't bothered. We just turned around and were sort of like got our hands up in the air and going back towards the half line. You know, we didn't even bother about what they thought. You know, so we were just over the moon that it come off as well. You know, so
in the players' bar after, Willie, did any of the Everton players comment on it?
From what I remember, mate, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember. And I probably had a couple of pints by then anyway, so.
And you had a decent season that season, didn't you? You finished 10th. You'd finished 6th the season before and got yourself into the Fairs Cup.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
What was your Any other memories on that game against Everton apart from the donkey kick? And why was it called the donkey kick? Who christened it?
Well, that's because I was like a donkey.
Yeah.
It kicks behind itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that's basically what it was. You know, I know we tried it. They'd asked us to try it before a pre-season match. Years later, a lot of years later.
Yeah.
And they took us to Highfield Road. But we got out on the pitch to try it, and oh God, I was struggling to flick it up because I was struggling to bend my knees. Then when I did flick it up, Ernie was smashing the ball into the wall because we got some young lads in the wall, you know. And
yeah.
In the end, what we had to do is I had to sort of like toss it up with my hands, and then Ernie volleyed it, and I think he volleyed it straight into the young lads in the wall again, you know. So I think they gave it up as a bad job, to be honest with it.
It's very difficult replicating perfection, isn't it?
Yeah.
The 90 minutes, anything else in that 90 minutes that was memorable for you? Ernie scored 2. Neil Martin scored the other goal for Coventry City that day.
Yeah. No, I can't remember, mate. No,
yeah.
Just a long time ago.
Your memories of the season, that was the first season that Coventry City played in Europe.
Yeah. Trakia Plovdiv was the first one.
Yeah.
We played against them. I think we beat them 3-4 over there, I think it was. And then we beat them at home. And then we drew Bayern Munich, wasn't it?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
That was who'd you call him? The big centre half. Played for them.
Well, in those days, probably Franz Beckenbauer would have been in the team. Paul Breitner would have been in the team. They had a very good football team there at Bayern Munich in those days.
Yeah, and they were a really good team because I know they battered us over there. And the other thing about that was that I don't know whether Bill Glaze was injured, but I know Eric McManus went in goal.
Yeah,
and they used a black and white spotted ball over there, and every shot, it was raining because it was raining, so the ball was sort of like hanging off the ground, you know. And every time they seemed to have a shot, Eric seemed to dive for the ball, and just before it got to him, just used to bounce and just bounced over him, you know. So he had a bit of a nightmare sort of thing, you know. And then I think we beat them 2-1 at home, but obviously the match was over then. But I know when training the one day, they got these black and white balls out, right, to train, and somebody shouted, "Oh, don't show Eric them, he'll have a heart attack." Because they say that at that match, every time they seemed to shot, he dived, and it just seemed to bounce just before him, just went over him, you know.
Now, your Coventry career started in 1967, didn't it? You were born in Glasgow, but your most of your childhood, from the age of 13 anyhow, was spent in Cambridge, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I actually, to be honest, when I came down to England, it was 1963, and then I was only there for 2 years before I come up to Coventry.
Yeah.
But my family still live there anyway.
Oh, right.
You know, all my family still live in that area.
How did the move to Coventry come?
Because to Coventry, just because I was playing for Cambridge schoolboys and was doing all right, and obviously around Cambridge was round about the London area. It's not about 50 miles from London, and I went and had a look round like Tottenham, Arsenal, West Ham, and West Ham was out of them three. I preferred West Ham.
Yeah,
but also come up and had a look at Coventry, and I just liked the feeling about Coventry, and it seemed to be, and I think it was just sort of like taking off then with Jimmy Hill, you know, with Sky Blue Train and stuff like that, you know, and I actually moved into my digs. I left school on this Friday, April the 6th, 1965, and I went into digs on the Saturday and started on the Monday.
Blimey.
So I just left school at 15, and just within 2 days I was up in Coventry. But I was really lucky because I moved. I was in the same digs for 5 years before I got married, and the people that were my landlady and landlord were brilliant. were magic.
And they were magic days. You've alluded to Jimmy Hill transformed Coventry.
Oh, yeah. Well, you had the Sky Blue train and all that, and they used to have, I think they played bingo in the train and stuff like that, But Jimmy sometimes I think with reserve matches, we'd have about 9,000 as well, Everybody, it was just on fire at the time. And he got some great ideas and stuff like that,
He was a revolutionary, wasn't he, in terms of football?
Yeah, he was. And but the other thing was he wouldn't take any nonsense off anybody either, Because I only played about. He gave me my debut. I played about 6 games before he left, because I think he'd already started getting into the television by then.
Yeah.
And I think he left at just after the Christmas or something like that. So I think I played about 6 games. Then Noel Cantwell come in, after that.
Now, what was Noel like? Because he was quite a charismatic figure as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, no, Noel was great. Noel was great. But as long as you'd done what you wanted, it was okay. But if you went against him, he'd let you know.
Yeah.
He was a big fella as well. But no, he was another. I liked him as well. You see, and there was a lot of coaches. There was Alan Dix was I think was one of the assistant managers at the time, and there was a lad who was the youth team coach was a lad named Pat Sayward, and Pat was an Irish fella. I think he played for Ireland as well, Pat. But he was great with the lads, and he'd got this thing where for match day, this is within the youth team, you had to wear a collar and tie, right? Yeah. And your tie and your socks had to match. They had to be the same colour, If they weren't, you were on a hiding to nothing, It was just discipline, really.
Yeah.
But it was great, but it was great for the kids as well, because he loved them to play football as well.
And you made your debut at Arsenal, didn't you?
Yeah,
in 1967.
Come on as sub in the last 20 minutes, I think it was. Yeah. Don't think many touches the ball, but great to come on anyway. So.
Capped 6 times as well during your Coventry career. Your debut being against Northern Ireland.
That's right. Yes, it's at Windsor Park. Yeah. And Dave Clement, who was at Coventry at the time, was playing for Ireland that day. He was, and we beat them 1-0 with a goal by Alan Gilzine.
Another great player.
Yeah, and then we played because the home international was Wednesday, Saturday, and then on the Wednesday we played Wales at Hampden, and I think there was about 30,000. We beat Ireland 1-0, 2-0 each way with Wales at Hampden. Then on the Saturday we played England at Hampden, and there was 137,000. It was just walking out into from the tunnel out into the open air. Oh, like the atmosphere and the roar was it like they used to talk about the Hampden roar. It was unbelievable, and obviously with 120,000 people, it was great. It was magic. And it was a lot of the England players quite a few of them, more than half were from the World Cup winning team as well, that day. So. Yeah,
you didn't do too bad against the World Cup winners, did you? Certainly in 1967, come to Wembley and gave England a footballing tuition.
Oh, I had the 3-2 guy.
Yeah.
Jim Baxter, I think it was that one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. Playing keepy-uppy on the pitch.
Yeah, Jim was. And sitting on the ball or something like that, wasn't he?
He certainly did. He got up to all antics, didn't he, Jim Baxter? Did you ever play with Jim whilst you was playing at Scotland?
No, he wasn't. I think he probably, I don't know, Jim probably maybe getting on a bit by then. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm doing a justice there, I don't know. But then I played with Dennis Law and people like that,
Scotland had some great players. Yeah. Scotland have always produced some great players. Yeah. And hopefully going forward, Scotland will again produce more great players. Yeah.
The last few years they've done all right, haven't they? They've got some decent players.
They certainly have, Willie. When did you first team up with Roger Patrick Hunt at Coventry City?
Well, it was what was it? Ernie had been at I think he'd been to the Wolves, didn't he? He must have went from he got transferred from Swindon to Wolves, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And then in the same season, he got transferred to Everton.
Yeah.
And then he come to Coventry in the same season. So I think it was with 3 different clubs in one season. And and that was the first time. But I as soon as I seen Ernie play and played with him in training, I knew it. That I'd love playing with him because he played the same way as I wanted to play, sort of thing. But he wasn't the tallest of blokes, but God, he was as strong as an ox, and he was very, very skillful. He was,
and he was
clever as well. He was very clever as well. And he got a lovely touch.
And he was quite a comedian as well, wasn't he? He got a sense of humour.
He was as daft as a brush. He was daft as a brush. He was, really, really funny. It was. He couldn't swim, but what he could do was because he used to love sunbathing.
Yeah.
And if the sun was really hot and he started sweating, he'd just stand up and just dive in. He could dive in the pool. Couldn't swim, but he'd just dive, keep to the side so he could get himself back out again, and then he'd go back on his lounger. But it was a funny man. He was really funny, But it was there was one we were on. We'd been out one night and don't know if I should tell you this, but I'll tell you it anyway. And we'd obviously had a drink, and he'd got up for the toilet, and he sort of shut the door behind him, then went through another door and shut it. And what he realised, he'd shut himself out of the room, and he was in the corridor now in the hotel, right? So at the end of the corridor, there was a lift, and bearing in mind he's got no clothes on, right? And anyway, the lift door opened, and who should be there but Noel Cantwell and his assistant manager, and he shouted at him, and he says, "What the hell are you doing?" And then I just had the peace of mind that there was a plate lying on the floor, so he just picked him up and just said to Noel, he says, "Room service." But that's what he was like. He was on the ball all the time. He was brilliant. Great lad.
Some wonderful times, some wonderful memories, and a tremendous trip down memory lane, Willie.
Yeah.
Can I thank you for your time, sir? And we'll have another meet-up, and we'll do a more in-depth My 70s with Willie Carr, where we'll talk about your career in more depth.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's great then, mate.
For now, thanks, Willie. Really appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
Cheers, pal.
Cheers, mate.
Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.